The attainable were undesirable, and the desirable were unattainable. So a couple years ago, I got a speeding ticket one night coming home, and it was really a silly ticket on my part because the car in front of me was going the same speed, if not a little bit faster, and I just sped up slightly to get past somebody, and it was in a spot where I knew cops like to sit, and it was just poor timing, and because I was in a Corvette and the other guy was in a Subaru, he assumed that I was going faster. So he pulled me over, and I handed him my Ohio Patrolman's Friends with Benefits card, and he brought it back with a ticket. I was a little bit surprised, actually, because it was 82 and a 60. It wasn't anything, incredibly ambitious. Certainly not cannonball speeds. I kind of said, hey, is no grace here at all? And he saw my other card, which was an FOP card. And he goes, oh, you had an FOP card? I had no idea. I said, sorry, this card is different than this one. Let me give you which one works here? So he told me to call the court and they'd take care of it, which was obviously just a passing along of responsibility because he wanted to just be on his way. So I called the court. They had no interest in doing anything. I called the prosecutor and left him numerous messages, never to get a call back. So I was trying to get this taken care of myself, to no avail. So I finally called a friend of mine who's an attorney, and he said, yep, no problem. I know that prosecutor will get this taken care of. So got it down to a no points violation, paid the court costs, everybody's happy. The irony of all ironies is that my court date was the day that I was leaving on a cannonball adventure to purposefully break the speed limit all the way across the country of Mexico. Maybe a year or so later, my insurance agent calls me. He goes, the insurance company called and they want to remove you as a driver from your company policy. That's a problem because it's my company. I said, well, what's the reason? I go, well, you have a reckless op on your license. I go, no, I don't, because it's on your record. And so I looked it up and it said disregard for safety. And the charge date was, this day that I had gotten the speeding ticket pled down, but it said disregard for safety, 0 points. Now, disregard for safety is the term that Ohio uses for a reckless operation charge. So I looked at it and just said, well, it's very clear. It says 0 points next to it. It can't be a reckless op because that's 4 points. So my insurance agent called back and pled my case to the underwriter, and they decided to just not make an issue of it. And, whatever he said convinced them to not remove me from my own policy. So that seemed to be a suitable explanation and a satisfying outcome. And I decided that nothing needed to be done about my record itself, because I figured any sensible human being could interpret a 0 points clearly stated on there as not a reckless driving charge. Well, that turned out not to be the case. So this year I had to get all new insurance because I got married. I bought a couple personal cars. My life insurance was up for renewal, so everything had to be redone. So in the course of trying to add cars to my personal policy, they denied me because they said, well, he has a reckless driving charge. I'm like, not this again. So I tried in the meantime to just get added to my wife's policy because she already had existing coverage, because I was only covered under my company at the time. I didn't own any personal vehicles for about a 6-month span. They didn't want to cover me. They actually wanted to add a household exclusion to me so that everybody in her household except me was covered. I guess they were more comfortable with a 3-legged dog and a 2.5-year-old driving her cars than they were with me. I said, well, all right, well, we got to get this sorted out quickly. My wife, who is much more patient with these types of things than I am, called the court and got them to issue an order striking it from my record. So the judge actually issued an order and said, this was an error, just remove it from his record. What the initial charge was unsafe vehicle. That's what they had it pled down to, which is a non-moving violation, and it shouldn't even be on my record at all. So that was great. I thought everything was fine. I sent the proof of that to my insurance company. I said, here's the order from the judge. well, we'll only go based on your driving record. We can't take that. We have to actually see it removed from your driving record. I'm like, man, they don't pay insurance underwriters to think, do they? They only pay them to do exactly what they're told. On the flip side, I'm also thinking, like, if this underwriter had half a brain, he would just Google my name, and then they would probably never want to cover me ever again. But thankfully for me, he wasn't that astute. We had to wait another 2 weeks or whatever for it to get removed from my record, and it had actually been removed from the DMV record. So I sent them screenshots of that, and they said, no, that's not good enough. It's still in our system. And I guess in their system, because my agent sent me a screenshot, it shows differently. So because it said disregard for safety, even though it was 0 points, it went into their system and showed as a big red exclamation point that said major violation. So their system didn't update for 2 weeks, and they wouldn't go off of what the DMV record said. They went off of what their system said. So this was just a whole lot of not being insured for a while and making my wife drive my cars and having to drive company cars while we sorted this out. So we finally got them to accept me as a driver and write me a policy once all that was struck from the record. And I thought my insurance woes were over. I was blessed with a Christmas gift of 2 tickets last year on the same day in different states. I can't say why just yet, but we'll just say that they were at triple-digit speeds. Now, both of those became 0 points violations when they came back to the state. Now, I learned something interesting, that when you get charged with speeding in a different state, even though there's the driver's license compact, that different charges are interpreted differently. So when the ticket comes back to Ohio, they didn't report the speed that I was charged with. They just said it was a speeding violation. So thankfully it showed up as 0 points in Ohio. Now the best part of that was the ticket in Texas, I was alleged at about 117 miles an hour. I tried to get an attorney to fight it because I said this is not going to be good. And I called around a bunch of attorneys, and I couldn't get anyone to take the case. They just said, no, we're not interested. We're not interested. No, we don't go to that locale. Now, I did get one attorney that was referred to me to take the case, but he gave me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. He would never return my phone calls. He would only text. And he seemed too willing to take it and just, yep, $250, give me your credit card number and we'll do it. I'm like, I kind of want to talk to you on the phone first. Because I couldn't get him on the phone, I decided to do a little searching, and it turns out that he did not have the best reputation and actually currently had sanctions against him pending from the Texas Bar Association. I found out that ticket attorneys in San Antonio for my particular case were, as a friend of mine said about his son's choice of women, the attainable were undesirable and the desirable were unattainable. And I even talked to one attorney that when I told him where the ticket was, he goes, no, me and that judge don't get along. No, I'm not doing that one. I'm like, man, what's wrong with, what did you say, or who is this judge? So I finally got a rational, professional attorney to call me back. I was blown away by his willingness to take the time with me and not get paid. But he basically said that the prosecuting attorney and the judge in that particular county did not have any sense of humor or grace and were very against speeding. And if you pled the, oh, well, this is going to impact my driving record, my job, all those things, they'd say, well, you should have thought of that before you decided to speed. So he said, you will not get anywhere. But he said, look at the violation. On your ticket, it says that you were charged with 10% or more over the speed limit. The fact that you were going 117 alleged doesn't matter. He said there's only really 2 charges. There's 10% or more less or 10% or more over. And your charge is a flat 2 points violation regardless of the speed. He said, I think you should just pay the ticket and take the points. Wow, that's, thank you for that. That's the best free advice I think I've ever gotten. So I called the court. I said, I'd like to pay my ticket. However, I need to know when you report it to the system that comes back to Ohio, do you just report the charge, as in this was speeding 10% or more over, or do you say the actual speed? And the girl goes to check on it, and she goes, no, we just report the charge. I said, perfect, thank you. She goes, wow, you were going really fast. I was like, yeah, it was. So she was explaining the fines to me, and it was a certain dollar amount per mile an hour over the speed limit, but they cap it at like $300. So I started joking with her. I go, man, I should have gone 150, get my money's worth, you know? She goes, no, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't want to do that. You might get hurt. I then proved myself to be a complete idiot because I was looking at what I was supposed to plead on the ticket itself. And they had a section where you're supposed to plead nolo comprende or contende. It was, for me, it was nolo comprende. But I said, is that like Spanish for not guilty? She was Spanish, as probably a lot of people are in Texas, so I felt really stupid after saying that. But I am from Maine, so my redneckness just kind of came out there. And she goes, no, that's Latin for no contest. I was like, yeah. Oh, yeah, if I kept reading, I would have seen that. Yeah, okay. Open mouth, insert foot. So, but she was very gracious anyway, and I ended up just paying the ticket and came back to Ohio, 0 points. My ticket in Florida got pled down, and that also came back to Ohio, 0 points. Now, I thought that was the end of it, right? No points, no problem. Well, no. My life insurance application then denied me because I had too many tickets. I also went to get collector car insurance for my Cannonball Monte Carlo, ironically, and all the collector car places denied me because I had more than one ticket in the past 3 years. And I'm like, doesn't every car guy? And then I realized, they probably really just want to insure Corvette owners that are driving to and from their shows at the speed limit. When the guy came to take my blood and check my weight and all that, and confirmed that I was indeed an extra medium, he was asking me all these questions. And he goes, well, do you have any speeding tickets? I go, yes. Well, how many? 2. Well, how fast were you going? Can't remember. Doesn't matter. It was 0 points on my record. Well, I know, but how fast was the ticket for? I'm like, doesn't matter. It's not what was alleged. It's what was charged. And he kept pushing me on this. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to answer you because it doesn't matter. Now, if he had been more observant, on his way out of my office, he would have seen those 2 tickets actually framed on my wall for display on my Cannonball wall that seemingly everybody else sees on their way out. But thankfully he didn't. And, they asked me that question again in the phone interview. And of course I had to fill out a big questionnaire about my racing history, which is, the 24 hours of lemons and full cage, fire suppressant system, legal, highly regulated, sanctioning body, all that on a closed course. And they raised my rate because of that. But I guess they don't have a category for cannonball shenanigans. So the official lesson here is don't speed. But when you do, and when you inevitably get caught, because we all do, even the best of us, it's helpful that there are resources out there like the Ticket Clinic and others that make it a little bit easier to find a reputable lawyer, unlike the debacle I had in San Antonio trying to find a good lawyer. So avail yourselves of those resources and get a good attorney that will help you navigate the nuances of the law and tell you how to interpret Latin before you make an ass of yourself talking to the court clerk.
A watch can do a lot more than just tell time. It can make a statement to the world or show people a little bit more about who you want to be. Vincero offers an awesome line of designer watches at a great value that you can check out today at the link in the description below. You can also use the code VINwiki for a discount at checkout, so be sure to check them out and thank them for their support of the channel and find your next watch. It might start a great conversation, turn some heads, or who knows, lead to your next great story.